Hey everybody, Dave here for the Frugal Sportsman. Thanks so much for hanging out with us again today. Today's video is all about how to spool mono on your spinning reel. I'm going to show you my tips and my tricks, so stay tuned. Okay, let's get started. Today I'm going to be putting on this Trilene big game line, and I really like big game line. If you go on Amazon, you can actually see the reviews. I don't know, it's like 13,000 views or something like that, and it's 4.7 stars. There's only like 2% with one star. So this stuff has really been good for me. It's very inexpensive. I got this at Walmart for, I think it was $6.74, something like that. And this is a 15-pound test, and it's 900 yards. A lot of times you'll buy the smaller, reel fill kits, and they're only like 150, 110, 100, or 330. So you're getting 900 yards for under $7. That's a pretty good deal. And like I said, I've caught some big fish on this, some nice stripers. It's always held up. It's done a good job. So let's talk a little bit about why you'd want to put mono on a fishing reel as opposed to braid. Well, they both have advantages and they both have disadvantages. With mono, you should replace your line every year, at the most every 2 years. It depends a lot on whether you keep it in the sunlight, like if you put it on the back of your seat in your car and it's exposed to sunlight all the time, how often you fish it. If you're fishing tournaments, I know guys that they'll want to change it every tournament, because they can't afford to have a nick in it and lose a fish. So mono is a lot tougher than braid. You would think braid is tougher, but it's not. In an abrasion test, braid breaks very easily if it's against the rock. Mono will hold up a lot better than braid. So that's one advantage of the mono. The second, as I said, was cost. Okay? And the other one that's a big key is stretch. When I'm trolling lures, especially bigger lures like Mojos or things like that, I like to use the mono. Some guys will use the braid, but I like to use the mono because that hook set isn't as abrupt on my rod holders or my equipment. And so the hook still sets, but it has a little bit of stretch to it, and I can see that rod bend, everything gets absorbed at the same time. So those are just three factors. If you can think of some other ones, I'm sure a lot of us could still benefit from your knowledge. So please put them in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. So before we put the line on the reel, and in this video we're going to be showing you how to put it on a spinning reel, we need to take the line off because most of you have equipment with line on already. So I'm going to show you a quick and easy way to take that off. Now, so this, I have a simple ice fishing jig here, a very small reel. And all I did was, you can either open the bail and pull line or take it around the bail and pull it straight like this. And then all you're going to do is make a simple overhand loop knot. Looks like that. Okay? Just take it and bring it through itself. Make a simple overhand loop knot. And then you're going to need a screwdriver. And the screwdriver has to be a Phillips like this one. All right? You don't want a screwdriver like this with a flat end on it because it gets wider than the actual shaft. So you want something where it's the same shaft diameter all the way out. And then what I usually do is I just take and I reach through the loop with my thumb and my forefinger like this, and then I reach down and I grab the main line and pull it through. So what I've done is create in essence a lasso. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on this screwdriver like that, and then I'm going to pull everything through. I had to work this knot through. There we go. Right like that. And now what I'm going to do is take a drill driver like this. I'm going to put it on the drill and just tighten it up like that. All right. Now, very loosely, start that line on there. And you can go pretty quickly, but you don't want to hold it real, have a lot of tension on there. You just want it to be on there loosely. And as you can see, that line is quickly coming off. I like to build it all up in one spot, just like that, because it'll be easier to get off. If you run it up and down the shaft of the screwdriver, it will be a little bit harder to get off. Well, we're almost there. Okay, there we go. Let's take a knife and cut this. Now we just then chuck this from the drill, set it over here, and now this line just pulls right off of that shaft. And what's nice about this is everything is so compact. You don't have this tangled bird's nest. See, now it's off the shaft. You don't have this tangled bird's nest that's springing out all over the place. It's super small. You just toss it right in the trash. There you go. Done. Now you have a bare, empty reel here where you can put your new line on. So now that we have the line off the reel, and that was just for simulation, I've got the reel that I'm going to be putting this on, which is a Quantum 4.0. All right, that's a decent sized reel for, like, you know, light salt water or salmon fishing. And so I've got this attached to my noodle rod. I've just used the butt section, and you want to attach it to the bottom section of a pole. Take the tip off and just put it on the bottom section, because it's going to be a whole lot easier to put the line on that way. Then the next thing I do is I open the bail, just like this. I just lift the bail back so I don't forget. Then what you want to do is, because you're on the butt section here, you want to actually, this long, you want to actually go through the first eyelet. So you'll bring the line up towards the tip and then come back down through. And you will bring that back down to the reel, all right? So by doing that, the line is coming straight down on top of the reel spool, and that's important. You don't want the line coming from its side or twisted over the top of something. So by bringing it through the eyelet up top and coming down, it'll be straight on, and that's going to be helpful to you as you put the line on the spool. All right, now the next thing we want to do is, the line, say, is through the eyelet. Let's come on down. A lot of people here will tie what's called an arbor knot. They will wrap the line around, and then they will tie an overhand knot, and then they will slip it on and snug it up, and then they have to try and get scissors or something in here and cut it, and it's really a pain in the neck, personally, I think. But, you know, to each their own. You know, as a young boy, I loved to play cowboy, and I'm sure many of you did, and I found an easier way. We used to make lassos and all kinds of stuff when we pretended. And so basically, the best way I've found to put things on the spinning reel is to just take your line like this, bring it back, all right? And so you got a loop like that. And now you're just going to tie an overhand knot. You're going to bring that loop in through that hole right there like that. And you're going to pull it. Now, I'm using fly line backing here to show you, because the monitor doesn't show up that clearly, but I wanted you to be able to see what I'm doing here. So cut that tag end off. So now you have a loop just like this. All right, now what you want to do is you want to stick your 2 fingers through, and before I go on it, you need to understand this loop needs to be about 8 inches long. So you want to double over a piece of line, maybe, you know, 14, 15 inches or something like that, and then tie your knot. You want this loop bigger than this. I want you to be able to see it on camera. That's why I've made it smaller. So when you stick your And the reason for that is because when you put it on a spool, say that's the spool, you go to tighten it, look what's going to happen. That knot is going to hit. It's going to mess you up. You're going to have to get in there and fish that knot through. But if the loop is bigger, the knot will go through before the loop tightens. And it will look more like that. So the reason I use this type of a loop on here rather than an arbor knot is because, look, it bites down. It cinches up as soon as it wants to go around. Now if I go this way, it just spins, see? But if I go that way, it cinches. And so it's important then when you put the line on the spool, you put this loop down over the top, that you keep, as you're looking down on top of the spool, you keep the knot, all right, to the left-hand side of you. Because when you do that, the real one will be turning this way, the spool, and it will cinch things down. If you put it the other way with the knot on the right-hand side, then what will happen is you go to cinch down on it and it will just keep spinning like this, see? It's not going to do you any good. So you want the knot on the right-hand side when you put it down on top. And so then what you're going to do is make sure your bail's open. It closed on me while I was doing that stuff. You'll put it on like that, and then you'll pull it through. And see that knot hits right on that loop. But you can also see that it grabs. You see it? It's grabbing right here. And so that's what I want. So that way when the bail closes, starts pulling around, then the line will be gripping tighter and tighter as I go. So now, the other thing that you want to remember is, I've heard people say, oh, when you put it on, just keep the spool up. But that doesn't always work because manufacturers are different. You know, they'll slap a spool on this side, that side, and it's not always the same. But the thing that you do want is you want this line, all right? Let me grab the end here. I'll take this tape off. You want this line to be coming off counterclockwise, all right? This is clockwise. You can see it. I'm going around clock. You want it to come off counterclockwise, like this, when it goes through. Now, why is that? Well, let me show you exactly. I'll spool this back up a little bit. This bail is going to be going around clockwise, like that, all right? So I want the opposite when this comes off. I want it to be going around the same, coming off the same way that it is going on the line. So you'll notice as this comes around, it takes the line off, see? As it goes around clockwise on the bottom, it comes around this way. And so by doing that, you're going to avoid twists and tangles. And if you try and do it the other way, your line, you will notice after about 10 or 20 turns, when you stop, it's going to spiral up like that, and you're going to have this twisted line with a loop on the end. And that is a horror show when you get out on the water. Now, one tip is if you have spooled your line incorrectly and you are having problems like that, it's a real easy fix. All you need to do is, especially if you're in a boat, just let it go out behind the boat while you're driving along, trolling or whatever. Don't put any weight or anything on the end, and then just let the line all the way out, and then just hold it and reel it back in, and it will naturally spin in the water the way it wants to go, and the line will come back on here the correct way. All right, if you are on dry land, you could tie it to a tree, pull it all off, and then untie it, and then do the same thing, and it will flop around. But I recommend you do it on grass or things like that are soft. You don't want gravel and nicks in your line. I mean, if that, you can do it that way. But anyway, those are just a couple of tips for straightening the line that's not put on correctly. So with that out of the way, let's feed this through, and we'll put this line on. I'll show you how this line goes on here, and then there's one more step to finish up. Okay, so now I've got the loop made. You can see how big it is, and again, I want it that big. And the other advantage of this is that when I pull this through, you'll notice something, and that is there's two lines here of the loop. And what I like about that is it's grabbing the spool in two different places rather than one. And so as I tighten, is even a greater opportunity for less slippage than just having that one arbor knot with one strand around it. So let's get it all set up this way. The knot is going to be on my left side, as I said, remember? And now I can just slip it over the spool, both lines. There we go. And now I just hold it up towards the front of the line like this. So put it back a little bit. Now the bail is flipped over, and you can see it just grabs immediately. I can pull on that and see it'll turn the reel spool. Okay, that's what you want. You don't want anything that slips in there. And so now it's just a matter of going over the top, right like that. Okay, now we're good. Now what I want to do is I want to just cut this line. And you'll notice it doesn't want to fly all over the reel because it's put on there properly. Okay, I've taken the spool off the reel because I wanted to show you how much I fill it. You can see behind here that from the line to the top here of the spool, the front half, is only about 1/8 of an inch. And that's what I leave there. If I go more than that, a lot of times what will happen is the line can jump off. If I go less than that, and I have the line only filled up, you know, with maybe 1/4 or even closer to the center of the spool, then what happens is when you go to cast, it has to come around this shelf here, and it's going to restrict your casting. So I just wanted to show you that so you get an idea how much I like to fill my spools with my mono. So again, right here, about 1/8 of an inch down from this top lip. So now that I've put the spool back on the reel, what I like to do is set my drag. And so what I do is I open the reel, I pull the line through, I close the reel, and then I tighten up the drag knob on top. Some are on the bottom back here, but this one happens to be on top here. And so what I like to do is set that at about 40% of the actual pound test I'm using. So this happens to be 15-pound test, so I want to set the drag at about 6 pounds. Now you might think that's kind of light, but the thing of it is when you have a fish, especially a larger fish, that surges on their first run, it happens very quickly, and so you want this line to release before it would break. Because it, you know, if it has to stretch and pull too long, it could break. So you want it to release quickly enough. So I'm just going to set this to about 6 pounds, and maybe a little more. There we go. That's pretty good right there. And you can tighten it up and you can loosen it however you feel is more adequate for you. But make sure that the final thing you do once you spool your mono is set your drag, and then you're ready to hit the water. Hey, thanks so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule today to hang out with us. And you know, we hope that video was helpful to you and that you got something out of it. And you know, if you did, we'd really encourage you to jump over to our homepage, because there you'll find lots of how-to and DIY videos that we think will not only help save you some money, but help deepen your outdoor experience as well. You know, putting mono on a fishing reel is not that difficult, and there are a lot of ways to do it, and it doesn't make them wrong. But as in everything, there are some ways that are better than others. You know, if I would ask 100 people out on the street this one question, how do you get to heaven? I would get a lot of different answers, and all of them would think they're right. But that's not true. In this case, there's only one way to get to heaven. You see, so many people think that, well, when I die, I'm going to stand before God, and He's going to take all the good things I had, and He's going to put them on one side of the scale of justice, and then he's going to take all the bad things, put them in the other side of the scale of justice, and it's going to teeter back and forth. And if my good outweighs my bad, well, then I'm good enough to get into heaven. And you know, I don't know where that came from, but it's totally not true, and it's totally not biblical. And you know, then there's other people that say, well, I heard that Jesus came and he died for me and for my sins, so you know, when I die, God's going to forgive me and just bring me into heaven. And that's kind of a half-truth. But the fact of it is that, yes, Jesus died for our sins, but we have to do something with his death. Let me tell you exactly how Jesus put it in the Gospel of John, chapter 14, verse 6. And he talks about himself, and this is what he says about you and I getting to heaven. He says, I am the way and the truth and the life, and nobody comes to the Father except through me. You see, the only way you and I can get to heaven is through a relationship with Jesus Christ. We can't go under, we can't go over, we can't go around, we can't make up our own way. You see, there's only one way, and that's through Jesus. When Jesus hung on the cross, which he did for 6 hours, a painful death, and the reason he did that is out of love for you and for me. He did that as God's gift to you and me, paying our penalty for sin once and for all. It's his gift to us. But just like any gift, you know, we can either take it and open it and unwrap it, or we can push it away and send it back. And you know, for so many of us, you know, we take that gift that God has given us, that way out, and we dismiss it. You know, I remember years ago, there were several guys that were out in a boat way offshore in New Jersey, and they were fishing, and they had started to take on water and had engine trouble, and then their electronics went out, and they were sinking, and they were far from shore. Well, the Coast Guard was advised, they went out after him and pulled up alongside of him. And you know what? Not one of those men, knowing that they were sinking and couldn't get out of that situation on their own, stayed on that boat and said, nah, you know what? I'll figure it out. I'll do it my way. You know, no. They jumped from their boat to the Coast Guard boat as quickly as they could because they wanted to move from a sure death into life. And you and I have that opportunity to do that through Jesus Christ. By just putting our faith in him, by trusting him, by going to God with a sorrowful heart, repenting and asking for forgiveness, God can cleanse our life and change us from the inside out. And you know, if you're not sure exactly how to take those steps, well, I've written a free book that's a very short read, and it's called Growing Deep. You can find it in the description below. You just click on it and start reading. It doesn't require email or anything else to capture. But in it, I share with you a little bit about my life before I knew Christ and how I came to know Christ and how I found love and acceptance in him. And more importantly, I share with you the scriptures and how you too can have your sins forgiven, how you can put your faith in Christ and begin to walk with him every day of your life. Guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us today. I really appreciate it. And if anything, I want you to always know that God loves you right where you are more than you know. And his arms are always open wide to welcome you back. You just have to go to him. Thanks again so much for hanging out with us, for all you do, your subscriptions, your thumbs ups, your comments. We really appreciate them. And thanks for being a part of our YouTube family. We are so thrilled to have you on board. So until the next video, remember to always get outdoors. Take care and God bless.